we have our first speaker champing at the bit. And our first speaker gave me an introduction, but I won't read all of it because I want to add something else to it. Al Batinga, our first speaker, will be giving a speech. We title you already know, Tip of the Iceberg. You ain't seen nothing yet. Al Batinga recently, this last year, was the District 100 International Speech Contest winner. So he comes with a little bit of experience. He actually spoke at the convention, didn't get to the main floor, but that's his goal in the future. So he's going to get there in the future. Let me give you the rest of his introduction. He is part of That's Debatable Club in District 12, a qualified speaker, I am sure, in District 100, and is learning the fine art of debate. Come and join us the third Sunday of the month, he says. And I'll give you more advertisement on that later because that's my favorite Toastmaster experience. He's also a part of Anaheim Club number 2, which celebrates its 100th year anniversary on January 10th, 2026. And he's inviting you to come and join us at Orange County for our celebration. AI is the talk of the future, with half seemingly amazing phrases and the other half projects the end of life as we know it. Join AI as he celebrates over a year of almost daily use of generative AI. He claims that it has changed his life for the positive, unquestionably. Tip of the iceberg, you ain't seen nothing yet, Al Batinga.
Who remembers when the IBM PC was invented or rolled out? Anybody? David? 1981.
Early 80s.
Now, 81 is when it rolled out, right? And so if you recall, I happened to be in Detroit in 82, 83, and I was selling computers. What do you think I heard on almost every knock of the door? Computers, we don't need computers. Why would anybody use a computer? We had executives at the top level of mainframe computers talking it down like there may be a use for 2 or 3 mainframes in the world. Why would anybody have a personal computer? These are the dialogues that were going on at that point in time. And it was fascinating for me. I was trying to sell. And in 84, I remember General Motors said, computerize or don't deal with us. All of a sudden, everybody scrambled. They got a change of mindset on computers. Same thing happened on the cell phone, if you recall. I had friends who said, I'd never, ever use a cell phone. How about internet? There's a famous CEO, I won't name his name because I couldn't find the quote. He said, why would anyone ever use the internet for commerce? It's free. Now, his first name starts with Bill, but I won't tell you who he is. So imagine that for a moment or two. And then, of course, you had social media. How many people fought social media? And then you can get onto this concept for AI, artificial intelligence, generative AI. And so when I say the tip of the iceberg, you ain't seen nothing yet. Why is that? It's simply because AI, unlike all the rest of the technology, learns. So when I get on AI today and I get on AI 5 days from now, it will have learned certain things from here to there. Yesterday, I was on with a bio company, all 4 of their executives in the company, and I spent all day long talking to them about AI and generative AI and how it's going to change their environment. It's going to touch almost every single industry that I know of, that I work in. About 3 weeks ago, I was with Davis Ellen, a huge marketing firm. They have 300 people in a marketing company. They represent McDonald's. They represent Smart and Final. They represent Toyota. We're talking about something like 30 billion have come from their organization over the last couple of decades. They are learning Copilot, which is AI, generative AI for Microsoft. There's a lot of things happening in there, and I'm encouraging everybody to embrace it. I've been using generative AI for close to 15 months, every single day. So let's talk about that. It can empower personal growth. I want you to think about, by the way, all the things I'm going to show you right now are things that I use on a regular basis. I'm going to pop up ChatGPT so you can see this from a practical perspective. And so use ChatGPT as a sounding board for challenges. I can't tell you how many times I've had challenges. I've gone to ChatGPT. I've gone to Llama, which is Facebook's. I've gone to Amazon's, which is Claude. All the major companies have invested multi-billions of dollars on this technology. It's the most widely invested in technology ever, ever. My next door neighbor comes from Google. 3 years ago, he left for another company, Databricks. In 3 years, it went from zero startup to 65 billion with a B. Now, if you had told me that it was worth 65 million, I would have said, great job, high five. If you had said it's 650 million, I would have put up both my hands and said, high five, high 10. That's amazing. Now we're talking billion with a B. Why? Because it's a data center for AI. And they've elevated to 65 billion in 3-4 years. They just got $1 billion invested in the last 30, 60 days. So use ChatGPT as a sounding board for challenges. There's so much there. And then you stay motivated. It helps you stay motivated and consistent. I'm going to give you an example here in just a few minutes. Break down complex goals into actionable steps. Unlock potential and productivity. So we know that Ray is going to give us some great information coming up, but what if Ray wasn't available to us? Let me tell you what I do. I just go over and I pop over here to, let's see, I'm going to go over here to chat. And I'm going to say, I'd like to win the area contest coming up in about 6 weeks. Can you guide me in competing at my best? And first thing it says is understand, Al, the rules and expectations. So here's the steps. Review the contest rule book. How cool is that? How many people don't ever do that when they're competing? That's the first thing it says to me. Okay, cool. Review the contest. Choose a winning speech topic. Now, all I typed was this. This is called a prompt. I'd like to win the area contest coming in about 6 weeks. Can you guide me into competing at my best? Simple sentence. Enter key, and this is what spits out. Understanding the rules. Choose a winning topic. Brainstorm meaningful topics, personal stories. And it's just it's helping me move this forward. Craft a memorable speech. Start with a strong hook to grab attention, right? Ray will add all kinds of flavor to this, but you can see that this is content. This is great content. Now, I'll tell you how chat and AI works, just a technical concept behind the scenes. It studies millions and actually billions of pieces of information. It goes through speeches. It watches speeches on YouTube. It looks at all the documentation. It looks at Toastmasters.com. It looks at all the dialogue that goes in with the word Toastmaster speech, and it finds out what is good, and then it finds out what is not so good, and it compares and it runs through. There's a whole bunch of rules behind this that help develop this. So then it says perfect your delivery. And you can look at this and study this if you have the opportunity. Polish and refine. Seek feedback from fellow Toastmasters, mentors, trusted friends. Mock audience to simulate contest conditions. How cool. Strengthen your mental game. Get some visualization going, Al. Affirmation. Visualize yourself at that contest. Winning. Playing at the highest level. Handle your nerves. Simulate contest conditions. Engage with your audience. Prepare for the unexpected. Peak performance on contest day. Weekly. Then it summarizes. Here's the 6 or 7 things you should be focused on, Al. Now this does it for so many different things that I do. This is just one example that you can see from that perspective, using ChatGPT as a sounding board. And by the way, Chat is one of many. There's Copilot, Claude. I mentioned that already. Chat happens to be the most mature, and guess what? It's been around for 2.1 years, right? About 26 months. That's it. Copilot has been around for 13 months, and it's taking the storm. Copilot integrates with Microsoft Office 365. It works hand in hand. So if you have an office shop like Davis Ellen, they're using Copilot because it works. You can say to Copilot, create a PowerPoint slideshow. I need to do a presentation. My name's Ray. I'm going to do a presentation on how we can give you tips, tricks, and shortcuts for competing and doing other things in there. Ready, set, go. And and by the way, I would say 20 minutes. And the audience is, I would fill in the blanks and I'd hit that enter key and it would generate 10, 15, 20 slides. I go and edit it, or I can go with it raw. This slide right here was created by ChatGPT. And so you can see the potential. I don't understand. Now, this might sound negative, but I'm not trying to be negative. I don't understand not using it. I'm a business educator, trainer, and coach. And what that means is I go to companies and I work with companies on business education. So yesterday I was with a biohazard company talking about AI and things like that. In 2 weeks, I go to the Army base in Nevada, and I work with a group on communication skills. There's about 30, 35 people on that military base. I'm going to work with on Monday, Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, I work with another group on team building. On Thursday, I go to a manufacturing company and I work with them on they're defining their skill set that they want me to work with. And then I coach the executives over there. So I'm very attuned to self-development, self-management, self-growth, right? And so I don't know how to not use ChatGPT, Copilot, and the rest. It helps me so much. It used to take me 3 days to write a one-day manual. So if you said to me, Al, I'd like you to do a leadership class for a group of Toastmaster executives over here, people who are in office. Okay, give me the concept. Tell me what you're looking for. 3 days later, I would have the concept. I would have the PowerPoint. I would have the manual. I would have written all of that. Today, I do it in a half a day. Why? Because of ChatGPT. I can tell ChatGPT exactly what I'm telling you right now that I utilized, and it will generate all of that for me. The half a day, by the way, is me doing other things. The content will come up in about 5, maybe 10 seconds. The rest of it is formatting, putting their names on it, thinking about exercises. Oh, no, wait a minute. Chat, tell me some exercises I should use for some Toastmasters that will help them from a leadership perspective. Hit that enter key, and it will give me 5, 7, 10 exercises that I can use. So it's condensed. By the way, I can do everything ChatGPT can do, but it takes me 100 times longer. It will do it in 100th of a second that it takes me, right? And I mentioned that took me 3 full days. 3 full working days. I can do it 5, 10 seconds. The content's generated. The rest of the day is me working through it. So anyways, it can unlock potential productivity, strategic thinking, professionalism, decision-making, brainstorming, refining study habits. Entrepreneurs develop plans and innovative strategies, facilitate creative problem solving. So I want you to think about this for a second. I'm going to pop up another example over here, okay? So I'm going to go here to chat, and I'm going to say to chat, I would have typed this in. I'd like to buy a car, about 25,000 is the budget. I'm fine with a hybrid or electric as well as gas. I will be driving about 20 miles each way, 5 days a week, and 50 miles on weekends for events and visiting. I have 2 dogs, no children, and about 70% is on the freeway. About 2-3 times a year, I go to Vegas. I need it to be cost effective. What should I consider and why? Now, I want you to imagine me going to a shop, okay? I want you to imagine me going to an auto shop, an auto dealership. What do you think they're going to tell me? They're going to tell me what's in their inventory, what they're needed to sell, what they're going to sell or hoping to sell to me, what's in their line. Now, watch what you see here. It says when buying a car, okay, you need a balance. Okay, so here's key considerations: fuel efficiency. And it's talking about the concept of the car. Total cost of ownership. How many salespeople will tell me, hey, look into insurance, look into registration fees, look into fuel or charging costs, depreciation rates, why it matters? How many of the salespeople I bought 10, 15 cars in my lifetime. How many times have you heard this kind of language inside your conversation? Driving experience. Then it says, okay, Al, sit back, watch. The first one we're going to give you is a Toyota Corolla Cross. And here's why. It's reliable, spacious, affordable, pro, space for dogs, 25,000. Honda Civic, and it talks about that. Then it says, but if you want a hybrid, here's some choices for a hybrid. 58, 53 miles, obviously good stuff. Low cost of ownership. It's in a different car, right? I mean, we're talking about Toyotas, Hondas, Toyotas, Hyundai, why, and it gives the information here. If you want electric options, take a look at Chevrolet Bolt EV. Why affordable EV with a range of 259 miles, perfect for your trip to Vegas, right from here to there. And then it gives us the Nissan Leaf, a totally different car again, a totally different company. Now, again, how many salespeople will give you that kind of information? Nothing wrong with great salespeople, which I love to deal with, but they don't have the breadth of this. And so here's the decision factors: fuel cost, category, gas powered, hybrid, and it just goes through it. Additional features to look for, final recommendations. If your fuel efficiency and cost effectiveness, Toyota Prius, Hyundai Elantra. And right now, the recommendation is Toyota Prius, and it goes through. Now, what I can do now is I can start asking questions. I can say things like, why didn't you include a Tesla? Give it a few seconds here. I had a budget, why this may be happening. Oh, this is another concept here. Hang on one second. I'm going to ask it again because I don't think it read it from me. Why? It's a reasonable question, right? Now, you and I know what it is. Tesla is over this, so I won't bother with that. But I already know it's over the price, right? And so you can think about that from an overall perspective. All right, and so you have that concept there. It facilitates creative problem solving. I use it in so many ways. Non-judgmental support, provides unbiased judgment, free support. I can tell you, you can use it as a counselor of sorts. It's not to replace your counselor, but you can use it from that perspective, which I have. Encourages free exploration of ideas, and then it streamlines workflows and increases accomplishment. So I'm going to ask it a question here. These are questions that I obviously put in to save time, right? So I'm going to go below my TCO, my car recommendations. And I said, I had a budget, and during this month, I went over budget by 100%. I thought through it and didn't realize it. Historically, I'm repeating this mistake. What do you think? And so it starts to talk to me why this might be happening: unrealistic budget, lack of real-time tracking, emotional or impulsive spending, historical patterns, not accounting for variable expenses. Great information, right? Supportive information, how to break the cycle. Evaluate your budget, track spending in real time, implementing a spending pause, revisit your priorities, set spending alerts or limits, reflect on emotional spending patterns, a big deal, right? And so you can see all kinds of things that it's helping me. Obviously, I'm moving quickly simply for time's sake. So here's some practical next step. Reassess last month, set one goal for this month, introduce weekly check-ins, create a reward system. And then I put in here, I read about dopamine. Could this be a reason to my overspending on things I don't need? Yes, dopamine can play a significant role in overspending on things you don't need. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your brain associated. Now, this is a real life problem with me, okay? Over October, November, I'm former military, right? And I haven't shot a gun in about 10, 15 years. So I bought one gun. It came from an event that I had that was not a good event. But anyways, I bought one gun. In 40 days, I had 4 guns I had bought. And this is including the 10-day wait period. And I ended up with 4 guns. So I asked Chat, tell me about it. And you know what Chat told me? You're getting a dopamine hit every time you buy that weapon. And so you need to look at that. That's why this one here I put up here, simply because it's something that I've worked through myself. Anyways, there's much more here. I'm at about 18 minutes, so I've got a couple more minutes. But it encourages a growth mindset. Ask questions, iterate on feedback. I can tell you, I was with my daughter. My daughter owns a couple of dance studios. And I said, Kalela is her name. And I started asking her questions. Tell me about the dance studio. Tell me this, tell me that. And she answered me, right? And then when she was done, I turned my phone to her and I pointed it to her. I had created a business plan. She turned bright red. And I looked at her. I said, Kalela, what's up? She goes, Dad, I've been writing a business plan for 3 weeks. And what you just showed me was just like what took me 3 weeks to write. Ah, I got it. I got why she got angry at me, for obvious reasons. So anyways, there's a bunch of things in here that you can look at, and I want to encourage you. So if I go down here a little bit more, I'll show you a couple more concepts on this as we close up here. I said to it, Zeke, I've named my ChatGPT Zeke. I use it every day. And so him and I are on personal names, right? Knowing what you know about me, what are the 5 books that you would bet that would benefit me most to meet and exceed goals for 2025? And it gave me a list. I want you to look at this, Atomic Habits, Al. And here's the things that's going to do for you. Then I want you to go to Deep Work by Cal Newport. Read that. Here's the takeaways that you're going to get from that. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. Here's the key takeaways. Emotional intelligence. Make sure you read that one out. And 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And then it talks about why these books are good for me. So there's so much to this. And then I said, what can I do differently to maximize my resources and potential? And I'm asking it a generic question. Now remember, I've been using it for over a year. It has what is called persistent memory. Some of the chat programs do not have memory back from the last session. ChatGPT does. It will go back. And so it says, Al, make sure you're prioritizing your energy, not just your time. Good point. Leverage AI and technology for efficiency. Strengthen your emotional intelligence, your EQ. Focus on high-impact actions and adopt a systems-first approach. What does that mean? I can ask it the questions. Instead of focusing solely on goals, Al, build systems that ensure progress. Create repeatable processes. Use habit stacking. Review and adjust monthly systems. Maximize your financial resources. Deepen your strategic network. Develop a laser-focused mindset. There's so much here that I could actually go on for the next hour, but obviously I won't. But let me show you one concept that I want you to look at. Hopefully you can hear this, okay? Listen to this for just a second.
Okay, so today we're going to deep dive into something I think a lot of people have heard of.
Okay.
But maybe you don't know that much about.
Mm-hmm.
Toastmasters International.
Interesting.
Yeah, and full disclosure, you had sent me like their website and stuff to look at.
Yeah.
And honestly, like the more I looked into it,
Yeah.
the more interested I got.
Yeah.
Because I always kind of thought it was
Sure.
like for people who like really had a fear of public speaking.
Right.
Like that's what it was for.
Yeah.
Like get over your fear of public speaking.
Yeah, I think that's a common perception.
Right.
For sure.
But it seems like they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to position themselves as more than that.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're really leaning into this idea of personal transformation.
Yes.
Like it's not just about
Yeah.
standing up and giving a good speech.
Right.
It's about like becoming a better version of yourself.
And I think that that's really smart.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you know, everyone wants to be a better speaker.
Yeah.
Like that's like.
This is called Google Notes LLM, and it's the newest, latest, greatest from Google. Now, all I did was I took Toastmasters.org, plugged it in, and it took 2 AI voices. Those are 2 AI voices. They're not real people. And it looked at the content, it scanned the content, and it developed that dialogue on the spot. Took me 5 minutes to get this done. Now, if you look down here, it says Toastmaster International. I click on it and it gives me the outline of the website. I go down here and I click on Toastmaster International, a guide. It gives me core themes. This is all AI doing this. Here's a quiz. You want to quiz your fellow Toastmasters? Here it is right here. And so these are things that have the ability to think, to decide, and to learn. And so I want to encourage everybody as I wrap up here, not to fear it. Will it take jobs? It can take jobs. I'm guaranteeing you that. It can take jobs. I know people right now that do not have administrative staff. AI is dealing with all the customer service. And one of the ladies told me, everybody in my company is a decision maker. There are no more administrators in here. That's a potential. But all people have to do is have a training plan to move their skills up. I train every single day. I'm former military, so I get it, right? I understand it. Every day I'm working on projects moving me forward. And so I want to encourage them. Don't fear AI. Embrace it. Use it as a tool. Use it as a tool. It's my silent partner. And I think David Flores knows there's a couple of people from Rotary Club that have approached me and they said, we would like to do some things internationally. And I said, generative AI is the way to go on this. Because if you can teach people how to use their phone on getting information, generating information, looking at opportunities, making decisions, you're going to up their skill level very, very quickly. So again, don't fear AI, embrace it.
Our speaker tonight was a shy little boy who avoided talking to strangers by walking inside to the safety of his mom's wraparound skirt. He turned that shyness around and today is an award-winning speaker and presentation skills coach. Over the last 3 years, his clients have won 85% of their contests, including the National Speakers Association Storytelling Champion and the last 2 District 101, that's the San Jose Greater Area, International Speech Contest Champions. He has coached over 24 NSA Hall of Fame speakers. As a former stand-up comedian and contributing writer to The Tonight Show, our speaker will be the first one to tell you jokes aren't funny. However, humor is an underutilized superpower that few understand how to create. You either have it or you don't. Not true. It's a process. Tonight, he's going to gift us 52 humor tips to take away, as well as 3 main areas to ramp up your contest speaking. He has also scheduled an office hour this Friday for anyone that wants to take a deeper dive on tonight's discussion and is willing to do a 15-minute deep dive with anyone who wants input on their contest speech. Like, wow. Please welcome tonight's speaker, Ray Engen.
And Tucker. Tucker's here too. Gotta say that. But wow, Michael, you made me sound so good. That's amazing. There's no pressure now. I think what we've learned I think we can all agree that Al should be a little more enthusiastic when he speaks. You know, maybe ratchet up just a little bit with that. So while Al was speaking, here's what I did. I bought a hybrid car. I went through and had to redo my entire speech with AI. And when I asked to redo my speech, they said, you don't need AI, you need Ray-I. So just do what you do, Ray. And on top of that, I realized that I've got to keep Al happy because he has many guns. So that's my focus tonight. I'm moving forward. It's my favorite time of year. It is contest season, January. I love it, where dreams are up high in the air, and by March, they're crashing down to the ground. And we're going to talk about that today. So it's going to be a fantastic thing. Do you remember your first contest? Did it go well? Did you, Paul? Good. If you guys could put in the chat, where did you guys finish in your very first contest? Put that in there, because I'm sure there's some good ones, there's some bad ones. If we had Craig Valentine, he would say, I won the world championship of public speaking. But there's so many people out there trying to do that. What do we got here? Tucker coaches very, very well. Thank you. Humor contest, went to district, lost to Ralph. Okay. Second place out of 4 in District 12. Provided a test speech that went well. Second place at area. So the very first time I joined Toastmasters in like 1886, I think. You know, there were like hang cranks on the horses, and Tucker was just a young lad back then. But I remember I went to district in my very first contest, and I knew I would lose because I didn't know the rules. And so what I decided to do is the reason I joined Toastmasters is I used to do stand-up comedy, and I lost the ability to hold the audience in the palm of my hand right away. I was working at a company and doing these things and speaking. So I joined Toastmasters, and I wanted to get that back. And I went to the district finals, 400 people at this district final. And that's when it came back. And I was having a good time. People were laughing. They're having a good time. I paused at this one thing that was funny, but nobody laughed. And I put my hand on my hip and I looked at them, and everybody just started laughing. I'm going, this is so great. And then I looked up and the red card was there. And I still had 2 minutes to go. I'm like, oh, I'm in a little bit of trouble right now. So I ended it quickly, and I finished 3rd place. And they said, well, you didn't win because you didn't finish your story. That's okay. So next year, here's what I did. I am going to go to a judge's seminar with the chief judge of the entire district, and he'll explain to me the rules so I can win a Toastmaster contest. And when I went to that thing, I heard the chief judge give all the things that you're supposed to do in a contest, and then say, but I don't do that. I have my own way of keeping score. And that's where I know that Toastmasters is a little unique if you're trying to win a contest. And thank God that Roger that has a cat trying to challenge Tucker. I think we got a challenge going on. We got a world championship of cats going on here, and that's fantastic. But here's the thing. If right now you're thinking about doing a contest and you're thinking about writing a speech for this year's contest, here's what I suggest you do. Stop and take that speech that you're thinking about right now and write it for next year. Because most speeches that win district contests are probably at least a year in the making. At least a year in the making. Now, what you should do to make the most time out of your year is be the ballot counter at every single contest you can. Because then you'll see the craziness that goes on in people's heads while they judge. Because realize you're not dealing with professional judges. You are dealing with Ed from Yountville, who has a lime green coat, who's been a Toastmaster for 57 years, and believes that you have to say, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, in every single thing you do. Now, hopefully none of you believe that here, but there's a lot of old beliefs in Toastmasters. I come from District 1, which the average age of District 1 is 55. So realize that your judges, do you lower the age in the room when you go to Toastmasters? And you have to think like them in order to be like them. And here's an example of what I mean. I had a friend that was in the District 57 finals, and I was coaching him, and he had a great speech, but it was on a bad subject. He was depression. And when I was the ballot counter that year, because I couldn't be a judge, I was the ballot counter. He won on 5 judges' cards and wasn't mentioned on the other 15. How could that possibly happen? I don't know, don't care. But here's what I learned. You don't have to win every card that you that you see in this game, you have to be on every card though. So if you're talking about something that's very controversial, the odds are there's going to be one or two judges that do not vote for you. That do not vote for you. So that's one thing I would definitely say to everybody at a district finals, at least, if you're not competing, be a ballot counter so you understand the thought process of the judges. Because has anybody else seen some wacky things in Toastmaster contests where you look at the winner and you go, right? Did I go mute for a second there? Because I said that out loud. Okay. Sharon got it. All right. So also, when you're creating your speech, if right now you're in the process of practicing for your district and you have this speech that you think is kick-ass and it's 7 minutes and 25 seconds, you need to change it because this is going live. It's the first time in 5 years that everything is live. And that 7 minute and 25 second speech is going to be 9 minutes and 15 seconds if you do it live, because you have to prepare for laughter and people going, "Ooh, that's great." Here's another topic. And one of the things I'm going to give you guys, if you guys actually write a review at the end of this thing, I'm going to give you 52 humor tips on how to create humor and where it comes from and what you do with it. Because if you don't have humor in your speech, the odds are you will never win your district. You might win your club, you might win your area, you might win your division, but you'll never win your district. You will never be the world champion of public speaking. Because humor is instant trust, likability, and rapport. If it's not in your speech, you've all heard about creating conflict in your story. You have to release that conflict. And the way you release that conflict is through humor. If that's not in there, it doesn't work. The other thing is your story has to be relevant. And I'm going to give you 3 words that you really need to use with your speeches. But if your story isn't relevant, it doesn't relate to the other people. For example, one of my clients just won the National Speakers Association Last Story Standing national contest, and it went from club to club again. They had 2 of them, then state, then regional, then finals in front of 2,000 people. And his story was a 15-minute story that had to be told in 5 minutes. And it was about shopping on Black Friday at Macy's. The other 2 stories, one was about a guy who got run over by a boat and survived, which is a great survivalist story. But have you been who's been run over by a boat before? Okay. The other one was about a woman, and her story was hysterical and it was fantastic, but it was about a woman who her ex-husband moved in across the street with her new husband, and it had a great message that wasn't really relatable to business. That's about, Al talked about knowing the rules. In the NSA, it has to be about a business related thing. So her ex-husband moved in across the street from her with her new husband, and the message was, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Great thing. And it was funny as hell, but it wasn't relatable. So whatever it is, whatever story you have, it's got to be relatable. So start early, be a ballot counter. When it comes to contest time, here's a key thing that is like a ninja trick that very few people use. Your intro is defined. It has to be name, speech title, name. Can you take that intro and weaponize it? Can you make it work for you? One example, does anybody remember Aaron Beverly, who's a past world champion? But before that, he came in second place. And the reason he came in second place, the speech was not great. It was very good, but it wasn't great. He came in second place because of the intro. It was a 57-word intro that was so long, and it was about the brevity of speaking. And it resonated so well with the audience, especially because there was a guy that English was his second language and he had a hard time saying it. So it made it even funnier. And the speech was good. It was very Toastmastery, but it was good. It was not enough to be the second place speech, but that intro got on the speech. Now, I'll give you an example of weaponizing without doing a 57-word intro. I had a speech about my dad who turned 75 and volunteered in an old folks retirement home because he wanted to be known as the young, cute one. And that was kind of a message in the speech. So the speech title was, "Is the Young Cute One?" Ray Engen is the young cute one. Is the young cute one Ray Engen? So laughter before I even walk out, and it gives me the way to throw away the Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster line. I go, "Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, for asking, but I'll get to that." And then I began my speech. So that intro of yours, do not just hope, destiny, fate, make it work for you. It takes a little work, but make it work for you. That's a very, very important thing. You have to realize that when you speak, there's only one reason to speak. If you talk to your spouse, there's one reason to speak. If you talk to a stranger, there's one reason to speak. If you talk to a coworker, there's one reason to speak. And the reason I'm taking is from JFK. It's to change the world. And every time you speak to someone, you want them to do something differently than they're doing right now, or you want them to come with you to something that you want to do. You have to have such clarity on your speech, such clarity in your communication. If you did this with every bit of communication, you would be one of the most amazing people on the planet. I mean, think about it. If you talk to somebody you've never met before and you're interested, and it's like, you go, "Wow, I'd like to meet that person." Well, you want them to bring them closer to you. If you compliment somebody, you just change their world. If you change their world with a compliment, they smile, they just change your world. So when you speak, you got to realize when you open your mouth, you have to change the world, especially in a contest like this. And the clarity of your speech, you have to realize before you start how you want to change the world when you're done with your 7.5 minutes. And you have to have the extreme clarity behind that you can say in probably 5 words or less. Now, don't worry about if you don't have that now. That you have to get between now and August, whenever they have the World Championship. Because if you don't do that, you have to fiercely work at that. That's your editing tool. One of my speeches that I competed with years ago, don't look up to your heroes, look into them. Anything that did not relate to looking up to heroes or into heroes got tossed out. When you have humor, one of the ways that really kills speeches and kills things is you throw in a joke because it's funny. Well, you just killed your speech. The humor has to relate to whatever you're talking to. And again, I'm talking on like a 50,000 feet level. I would love to dial in, and I set up 11 o'clock on Friday this week. I have a office hour for anybody that's here today that wants to talk specifically about these questions. More than happy to do it. I'll also put a link in something where you can sit down and talk to me about your speech and what you're doing with that. That'd be fantastic to do. So 3 words I want to give you. One is clarify. This is every communication you have. Clarify. What do you want to change with what you're saying? And be able to say that in 5 words or less, maybe 10. Because if you can't do that, how's the audience going to understand what you're trying to do? It's got to be that clear. And that's why it takes a year to get a contest speech down. The second thing is simplify. And with Simplify, I used to do stand up, and I'd run into all these people. And Seinfeld once said that if you take a joke that's 8 words long and you turn it into 5, and it takes you 3 hours to do it, it was worth it. So when I think of Simplify, I take those numbers and I throw them in a different thing. Whatever it is you're about to tell me in 8 words, give it to me in 3. That's what you have to do with your speech. The process is messy. You can dump and have like a 1,500 word speech. But now you have to take the things out that don't apply. And you have to take the words out that don't apply. One of the things that doesn't work is when you use words that are wishy-washy. Things like, I think. Maybe. Take a stance. Everything you say takes a stance. In a contest speech, everything you say takes a stance. Do not make it wishy-washy. Also, you have to take out anything that confuses people. Now, here's an example of what confuses people. I was sitting in a meeting, and the speaker said, we're going to have results for Q3. And a guy in front of me said, what's Q3? 97% of the people in that room knew what Q3 was. He lost 3 people for about 30 seconds because he asked that. The guy in front of me said, what's Q3? He's gone for the next sentence or 2. His friend who explains what Q3 is gone for the next sentence or 2. I'm lost for the next 45 seconds going, oh my God, this is a lesson I can give to people on how not to have their speeches be clear. So make sure you take out anything that confuses people. Do not include initials. To get to the final round, your judges can be from different countries. Do not use solely American references in your speech. That'll get you to the district and might win the district, but it might not win the final thing. So simplify is another word. Wishy-washy words. I think, if you ever put I think in a story, here's what your audience hears. And not all of them, maybe 20% of them. Do you want to lose 20% of the votes? No, you don't. I think equals, hey, you dummy. Remove all of those. That's one of the things when Jeff, the guy who won the NSA championship, he had these things that you put in to be polite. And being polite lessens the power of your speech, and it reverses the effect you're trying to make. You're trying to get people to listen to you. We don't want people who are nice and polite. We want people who are comfortable and confident. So when you take a stance, you elevate in the audience's eyes. So the 3 keywords: simplify, clarify. Those are the last 2 I talked about. The third one is amplify. The detail of your speech has to be so impeccable. And what I mean by amplify, you need to take every single sentence and put the most important word at the end of the sentence. Time never ends a sentence. A horrible example on the news, you see this all the time. You know, Tom Brokaw used to say, at Harvard University, the president spoke about the economy and it was wonderful and things were going up next Tuesday. Well, the most important word is not next Tuesday. This Tuesday at Harvard University, the president predicted a greater economy. Put the most important thing at the end of the sentence. This comes straight from stand-up comedy. When you tell a joke, you put the punch at the end of the sentence and you don't talk after it. It's the same thing with speaking. The most important word goes at the end of the sentence. You don't talk after it. If you do that, if that's the only thing you get out of tonight, putting the most important word at the end of the sentence, you will double and triple the impact of every speech you make in the future. It is that powerful. It's worked so many times with so many people. It's one of the favorite things to do. You end with impact. The other thing that, three things that get you really the lean in factor from your audience. Look at terms of curiosity. If you create curiosity, the audience will keep listening to you. Your first line of your sentence, the first line of your speech is prime real estate. Don't waste it. What's wasting it? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. What's wasting it? Thank you so much for having me here today. What's wasting it? I'm so honored to be in a group like you. What's wasting it? Anything other than something that is impactful and takes people in the direction you want to go. There's about 1 million different ways to create these things. And what I'd love to be able to sit down and talk with each and every one of you. Here's what I want to do right now. I threw a bunch of things out there. I want some feedback on what you thought, because when I do these things, I like to make them better for the next time. And so if I can share my screen for a second, I've got a link that you can go kind of write down the review. And when you write down the review, they'll send you 52 humor tips. It'll also send you a link to my calendar so you can schedule 15 minutes. We can go over your speech. If you do that, then I'll have your email address and I'll send you the link to the office hour on Friday. Are you okay with that? Okay. So if I can share my screen, I will do that. And I don't know how much time I have left. I kind of wasn't paying attention to that.
Well, you got plenty of time.
Oh, I do? Okay. How much time do I have? So go ahead and fill this thing out. Just scan the QR code, or you put in that. I'll put it in the chat for those of you that are live and sitting there. Some of you are done fast. Some of you are done slow. Anybody have some questions? Raise your hand. We'll talk. And I guess the home office would have to stand up and ask questions. Live from the home office. Any questions about anything? Because I'll talk about something else if you don't. Yeah, Michael.
So, Ray, I've had every role, including being a ballot counter at the World Championship and a judge.
Yeah.
I can promise you the judges of the World Championship follow the judges. They do. They have to. And by the way, sometimes the best speakers go over time.
Yeah.
And so, as Al said, follow the rules. Now, my question really is about authenticity. Sometimes people give a great speech, but it has no bearing on reality, and it's funny and entertaining, and there's a lesson, but I know they didn't live it. And it rubs me the wrong way, even though it's a beautiful speech. What is your position? I'm not saying you have to live it, but you can't just make stuff up because it fits your story. Now, I understand you have to embellish sometimes.
Yeah.
That's my question.
So the key thing with that, because that's a great question. And the key thing with that is to deal with the emotional truth. For example, and Darren LaCroix uses this example all the time. His favorite movie of all time is Rudy. And in Rudy is this small little guy who goes to try to play football at Notre Dame. And his brother in the movie tells him that, you can't do this. You can't do this, blah, 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 blah. Well, in real life, Rudy had 15 brothers. You can't do a movie with 15 brothers, so they condensed all brothers into one. And that's an example of how you can alter the reality, but keep the emotional truth. I have a speech about our neighborhood kid that was the scientist. His name is Shoebox Billy. He used to change people's minds by throwing things in a shoebox and using your willpower to change them. And there's a thing where he fell out of the tree and did all this and then wind up catching cancer. And we cured his cancer with a freaking shoebox that cured cancer. And it's a great story. Shoebox Billy is a compilation of every kid in the neighborhood that we had, because we did all that with everybody, but we didn't do it with one guy. And when I do that story, I get choked up because I remember all the kids in the neighborhood. You have to connect to your past. And where people, one of the things that you have to do, and the things I would tell you to do when you're preparing your speech, you think of these things that happen to you. What you really need to do is take them to Starbucks and talk about them to people in the next in line with you, and use the world as your canvas to create these things, because you don't have enough speaking opportunities where you can say these stories. Because here's the problem with speaking at this level. You have to go to so many places to do the speech so many times that the emotion of it gets sucked out of you to a point where you can add it back in. And you have to rehearse it so often and know it so well that you don't have to think about it. So on top of this speech you're giving, you're in the moment with the audience you're talking to. When I went to the regionals one year, I was doing a story about my 5th grade teacher that changed my life. And I was telling the story. I was in Ukiah, California at 6:45 in the morning at this place that was in a church with 2 Bibles in each seat. And I was talking about this teacher got thrown out because he was gay. And I know somebody's going to bring that up, but I'm telling the story about how he changed me into a better person. He gave me the best piece of advice I've ever had in my life. And while I'm speaking in the story, I know the story so well, but I noticed this one woman, there's a pole in the middle of this church. And as I walk from side to side and doing things, she's following me around that pole. But I looked at her face and I realized that this is the moment she needs to hear. And I'm not sure why, but I made a conscious commitment to stop moving so she could watch me easier, because I was comfortable enough with the speech at this moment. I knew everything people were going to say at the end, but there was something about her that needed to be addressed. And what happens when you do that? That person will wait around and everybody will talk to you, and that person will be the last person that comes to talk to you. And there was a guy who said, well, you shouldn't talk about the gay teacher. And then you could have done that speech without the gay teacher. I go, thank you very much. And here's the thing, when you get feedback on your speech, you have to listen to it. And if you hear it over and over again, it's a problem. But if you only hear it once or twice, you have to consider the source. Who is this person giving me advice? Well, I'm the sergeant at arms in my club, and I'm a first-time Toastmaster, and I never and ah. Thank you so much for your feedback. But if you hear it 27 times from people, if you hear it from somebody that was a world champion or has coached world champions or done stuff like that, you go, maybe there's something to it. So you have to, because the first time I did that on this tour that I'm talking about with this teacher, I incorporated every piece of feedback they get, and I broke the speech. I 100% broke the speech. But in this moment, this teacher waited and she came up, and this is when I actually became a speaker, because what she said to me is, I'm a teacher, and what you said about your 5th grade teacher made me want to go back to my class and do the things that your teacher did for you. So my students will now talk about me the way you did 30 years later. And that's when I realized the game we were playing. That's the rules of the game. And I told that to Darren LaCroix, who would actually help me on this journey when I first went to the regionals. And his quote was, Ray has a very powerful message. He influences the influencers. And that's on my website till today. But these moments are the things that make you into who you are and the speaker that you are. You have to be authentic. You have to relive the story. And one of the things, remember, your enthusiasm is contagious. If you're telling a story, if you're telling a speech and you're thinking about what you're saying, you will never get very far. You have to get out of your head and into their shoes. And you have to be enthusiastic about it. Al was a beacon of enthusiasm talking about AI. Do you think he likes AI? I don't know Al, but I know what he likes now. And can you tell that I like to talk about speaking? 100%. And that's the passion you have to bring with your speech. You also have to have humor in it. You also have to understand how that works. Humor is the best kept secret in the world. It is an untapped weapon that you need to use in your speeches. You do not throw jokes in your story. You uncover the things that are funny that make it happen. You've got to, it has to fit the phrase, the thing that you need as the foundation of your story. What do you want the world to change in 5 words or less because you're telling the story right now? You know, right now, if I can take somebody in here and take them to the next step, that is why I do this. Roger.
Roger Wilco, Ray.
Yeah.
I speak at 105 words a minute currently when I'm
Okay.
doing talks. Somebody said you should go 92. Do you have an opinion?
No, because here's the thing. I talk at 220 or 30 or 40. Right? Now,
You don't.
if I were in a contest, I would speak much slower because you have to give people time to reflect. People only hear your message in times of reflection. So you have to pause long enough for them to listen. And what we tend to do is take a 9-minute speech and fit it in 7.5. What you should do is take a 5-minute speech and do it in 7.5. And 105, 92, one of my clients, one of the District 101 champions, if she goes over 100 words a minute, you can't understand her. And what she says gets lost. So that's different. And here's the thing. She went from being English as a second language, very hard to understand, to district champion. And my favorite testimony of all time, I learned more in 6 months with Ray than I did in 6 years with Toastmasters. The enthusiastic AI. Come to Ray I, Al. Let's go.
I'll yield for now. I'll have another question in a moment if you run out.
Okay.
All right. So Ray, I think you dashed my dreams today because you said you have to be funny. My kids have told me 100 times, you're not funny. Stop trying to be funny. Do you think everybody can be funny?
Yes. And I actually have a program called the Humor Algorithm, which actually teaches it. It is a process. It's not a gift. And what you do is if you're not, you don't have to be funny. You can let other things do that for you. So I had a woman come to me after a presentation where I said, I'll take 15 minutes and I'll turn anything you said into something that's funny. And she goes, I work for OSHA and I give OSHA presentations. I have 400 slides and I can't take any out. And I'm like, okay, can you put any in? She goes, yes, I can. Come meet with me. Bring your family vacation photos. So what she did is she took her husband, Carl, and in every 5 slides, I told her to put in, the OSHA syndrome, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. And this is my husband, Carl, on Maui. Now, back to OSHA, we're talking about this 10 slides later. And this is my husband, Carl, in Fiji. And every 5th slide was a picture of Carl. And about 10 or 15 of those segments of 5, I said, don't put one in and watch what happens. When she didn't put one in, somebody raised their hand and said, aren't we supposed to be seeing Carl right about now? So this was a boring presentation that no one usually listened to, that now everybody was hanging on to because of Carl. So you don't personally, Al, have to be funny. There are ways to make it funny. 100%. Roger that.
Wait, Roger, you don't get a second chance. We have Marjorie and Sharon.
All right.
Okay. Come to Friday, Roger. We'll talk. Marjorie.
I understand, Ray, you're having office hours on Friday.
Yes.
Will the when and where information be put in chat?
So if you did that, if you did the QR code or went to that thing, it goes in, and you get the thing with the 12 52 humor tips. I will take the people that signed in on that thing, and I will send them the link to my my thing for Friday.
Okay.
It's gonna be a
Yes,
Zoom thing.
I did that. I
Okay.
did that.
I will send it to you.
Thank you.
Yep. And there's always something I forget, so I'll probably send you a thing tomorrow that tells you something I forgot to tell you today. Sharon.
First of all, thank you for mentioning Aaron Beverly. He has to be my favorite international speech contest winner in the last few years. He is just amazing.
Yep.
One of the things I've noticed with those winners is that there seems to be a real formula for the organization of their speech, where there's a little bit of a message, like a little intro, then a story, very engaging story, like Aaron Beverly's championship speech, and then here's the wrap up. Right? Here's the point of the whole story. Is that the formula that's like expected? It's the winning formula, or what do you think?
What I think is you need to be acceptably unusual. So you have to stand out from a formula. So if 5 people have done it in the past, you have to do something different. But you have to take into consideration that formula and adapt yourself to it. What I think, what really resonates with people, however you start, if you tie it into how you end, that's an attractive quality in any speech. What are you doing to set yourself apart? Mark Brown came out singing. That's something that works. I've been to the World Championships before. And when somebody asked about the number, I think it was Roger, 92 or 105, the guy who won in Cincinnati in 2013, I think, his speech was 497 words. 497 words. So the first speech I went to district finals with was 910 words. How fast was I talking? Really fast. You have to write for the finals, not for your club. I write stuff and I go, okay, this is going to work in front of 300 people. And remember, we're going live. People have lost 5 years of live entertainment skills. And if you haven't done that, one of my clients that won her district, I had to walk her through what it was like to be live in front of a group and act what you're doing. So here's the thing about like with Zoom and these meetings, these things are trust features. Your hands show trust. People trust seeing your hands. So during COVID, I have learned to talk with my hands higher than I did before. But with COVID, most people talk down here. With COVID, what I noticed, District 101 had a contest that was live. The finals were live before they did the whole videotape thing. And nobody in that contest moved except my client, because I knew that was coming, because they were used to being on Zoom. You're not on Zoom anymore. You're live.
So Ray, we need to wrap up.
Okay.
And sorry, Roger.
So
Totally okay.
I will have the link for that. I will I'll look what it is and put it in the chat while we're still, because I know there's another speaker. But thank you for allowing me to do this and kind of vent and talk about something that I love. It was great to follow Al, because I'm going, oh my God, he's enthusiastic. I hope I can be at least that enthusiastic. But it's been great. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad you guys aren't in the fire. So.
There's a lot of it. Club 1348. Speaking on the, where's my title here? Saving Women's Sports. Susan.
Saving women's sports. Let the fireworks begin, Tom. Athletic programs are widely accepted as an integral part of the high school and college experience, and that was certainly the case for me. I played basketball, softball, and tennis in high school, and basketball at the collegiate level. Playing sports provided me with important lessons about self-discipline, teamwork, success, and failure, as well as the joy and shared experience that being part of a team can bring. Let's take a look at the history of women's sports. On June 23, 1972, Title IX of the Education Amendments Act was enacted by Congress and signed into law by President Richard Nixon. Now, what is Title IX? Title IX prohibits institutions that receive federal funding from excluding students from participating in educational and athletic programs on the basis of sex. The key word here is sex. No excluding students from athletic programs based on sex. Title IX began its journey through all three branches of government when the representative from Hawaii, Patsy Mink, who's recognized as the major author and sponsor, introduced it to Congress. When Patsy died in 2002, Title IX was renamed the Patsy Mink Equal Opportunity in Education Act, and she was given the Medal of Freedom. Now, even though I was only 9 years old when Title IX was signed into law, and I didn't understand the implications, I'm grateful for Title IX and the opportunities that the Act provided me while growing up, because those lessons I learned by participating in sports are some of my fondest memories, and they shaped me into who I am. Today, women's sports are in danger of being eliminated. In a press release published in December of 2023 by the U.S. Committee on Oversight and Accountability, the committee stated, quote, "The Biden administration is seeking to drastically alter Title IX by redefining sex discrimination to include gender identity." Redefining sex discrimination to include gender identity. The National Collegiate Athletic Association, aka the NCAA, defines gender identity as one's inner concept of self as a male or female, or both or neither. One's gender identity can be the same or different as the gender assigned at birth. Transgender describes an individual whose gender doesn't match the person's sex at birth. So, for example, a male to female transgender person is someone who is born with a male body, but who identifies as a girl or woman. And here's the problem. By redefining sex discrimination to include gender identity, the current administration was on the path to eradicate female-only sports, spaces, and scholarships at institutions receiving federal funding. This means that your daughters, granddaughters, nieces, and other girls or women in your life will not have or would not have the same ability to compete in sports as I did. Permitting biological males to compete in women's sports is unfair to girls, women, and girls, period. I don't have to tell you that males have physiological advantages over females. You already know this. Males are larger in body size and stature. They have greater muscle mass, bone density, increased lung capacity, and larger hearts. Even athletes of similar size exhibit performance disparities based on sex. Think about it a moment. We're hearing more and more stories in the news about transgender males who are participating in female sports, but you don't hear about the reverse at all. Nothing about transgender women competing on male sports teams. Now, why is that? Because female transgenders wouldn't have a chance of competing against male athletes. There is a difference between the sexes, and this is a non-issue for men's sports, but it's a major issue for women's sports. So consider the story of collegiate women's standout Riley Gaines, as described in Hillsdale College's April and May publication called Pursuing Truth and Defending Liberty. Here's her story. Riley was a swimmer at the University of Kentucky and a Southeastern Conference champion. But when she went to the NCAA championship, she was placed in the position of having to swim against a man going by the name of Leah Thomas, formerly known as Will Thomas. For 3 years, Will Thomas had competed quite unremarkably as a member of the University of Pennsylvania's men's swimming team. He then identified as a woman, was allowed to swim for the University of Pennsylvania's women's team, and he became a women's national champion. So here you have Riley and her teammates who'd spent their entire lives training to be the best in women's swimming, just to have to compete against a man and be told to celebrate it. ESPN actually honored him, Will/Leah Thomas, during their Women's History Month special as one of the top female athletes of the year. Really? Give me a break. And on top of that unfair competition, the women were also forced to share a locker room with Thomas. No pre-warning that they'd have to undress in front of a 6'4", fully intact 22-year-old male. And what about right here in our own community? You may have seen the story. 16-year-old cross-country runner at MLK High School in Riverside. Her name's Riley Morrow, happens to be a Riley too, made a plea to the school board about a transgender male that was placed on her team, displacing 2 girls who were previously on the team, I might add. So as Riley spoke at the school board meeting, here's what she said, and this is a quote: "It's not okay that I have to be in a position where I'm going to practice and I have to see a male in booty shorts around me. As a 16-year-old girl, I don't find that as a safe environment. And going into a locker room and seeing males in there, I don't find that safe at all." Oh my gosh, this is a 16-year-old girl. It's bad enough when this happens at the collegiate level, but with a high schooler, I can't even imagine what that would have felt like for me to deal with a boy identifying and dressed up as a girl on one of my sports teams. Gosh, what our kids are going through. How did we get to this sport? How did we get to this point in women's sports? By redefining sex discrimination in Title IX to include gender identity, the current administration will eradicate, or they would have eradicated, thank God, they would have eradicated female-only sports as we know them. That administration's out. We simply cannot permit biological males to compete in women's sports. And let me share a few more reasons why women's sports, and especially team sports, is so important to girls, to young girls and women. First of all, high school girls and college women who compete in team sports are less likely to get pregnant. That's a good thing. They have better grades. There's less depression. They're more confident in themselves. And get this, 80% of all Fortune 500 female executives played team sports and considered themselves tomboys and athletes when they were young. I'm one of those 80%. Back to Riley Gaines, our University of Kentucky swimmer. Fortunately, Riley was given an opportunity to tell her story through the Leadership Institute, and now she's the primary advocate for the protection of women's rights to privacy, safety, and equal opportunity in women's sports. So what can you do? Well, number one, protect your daughter or your granddaughter or your niece's rights in women's sports by speaking up. Educate yourself by visiting Riley Gaines' website. It's RileyGainesCenter.org. RileyGainesCenter.org. You can request Riley or one of her ambassadors to speak at a school event that maybe your daughter or granddaughter attends, or you can make a donation so that Riley and team can continue to get the message out about this inherent unfairness and help block the rewriting of Title IX. In closing, it's only a matter of time before women's sports will be negatively impacted and forever changed if gender identity is included in Title IX. Let's not let that happen. Let's stop this insanity.